Should you take magnesium? Let's dive into it. So we are the Crohn's and Colitis dietitians, and we asked people on Instagram what questions they had around products and supplements and how to navigate that world. And we got a couple questions that we want to address. So one of them was, should you take magnesium, and where do you look for that? So let's start with that. So how do we as practitioners advise on this, and how do we navigate this as patients? What are your thoughts?
Oh my goodness, magnesium and IBD. With navigating it, it always depends, right, Ashley? And I think maybe people get sick of dietitians or other healthcare practitioners saying something like that, but it truly does, because someone's reason for taking it may be different than another. What I mean by that is that there's many different types of magnesium, so that needs to be taken into consideration, and each one can help with a certain thing that's happening in the body. So for example, there may be a certain magnesium we recommend when someone is constipated. There may be there is a different magnesium that we will recommend if someone is experiencing like muscle cramping or having headaches. So, it all depends on kind of what's going on in the body. And that's always my first thoughts when it comes to magnesium supplementation. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a surprise sometimes to people, is just how different magnesium can be. It's all about the type and the dose.
Yeah.
So even I've experienced too, when working with someone as a dietitian, them saying, "Oh, I've already tried magnesium. I don't want to try that." If they're showing clear signs of magnesium might be low and they might benefit from it, but then we actually talk about it, and then it's like, "Oh, you only had 100 milligrams of magnesium in magnesium citrate form," or whatever it might be. And such a big difference with magnesium citrate in terms of absorption rate, and it's typically used more as a laxative or to move stool out because it pulls more water into the bowel. Whereas, someone who has actual signs of low magnesium or magnesium deficiency, we may want to address that with something that absorbs really well so they can actually address what's low. So very, very much two different worlds. And so what's interesting is, with medications, you would never just go to the store and just pick out whichever one and whatever dose, you would get it specifically dosed. But when it comes to nutrition and supplementation, you actually can go to the store and just pick whatever, which can sometimes lead you down the path of something either not working or maybe actually intensifying a symptom. Let's say you're someone with IBD and you're dealing with restless leg, and you read something saying that it can be caused by low magnesium or low iron, which is true. And then you go to the store and you purchase a magnesium, but you're not sure what type. And because supplements often also don't list what type of a nutrient they're using, you might also not know what you're getting. And so it may or may not be effective and could actually, intensify symptoms if we don't get it right. So I mean,
Absolutely.
that's like the reality of the world we live in, and what consumers have to be, the choices consumers have to make based on little information sometimes. So that's the dilemma. But, I guess the takeaway that I have with magnesium is, that I hope you take away from this video, is that there are different types and there are different doses for specific things.
100%. Yeah. So not only are we looking at the type of magnesium for a certain individual, but also when it comes to supplements, checking to see if it's third party tested, checking to see, is the supplement actual quality, or is it, did it fall off a truck somewhere? That's where I picked it up from. That was kind of extreme, but you know what I mean? Like, quality is an important piece too, especially in IBD, because our guts are already at a position where they may not always be absorbing nutrients in the best way. So we want to choose forms of supplements that are highly absorbable, more bioavailable. So that third party tested, a good quality supplement, talking with your healthcare provider about it so that you can skip the what the heck am I doing at the drugstore or whatever kind of shop you're at. And talking to your dietitian too can be of great help. The dose is always important for whatever we're talking about, even food. So yeah, you can take the guesswork out by talking to your dietitian.
Yeah, and let's talk too about like what is third party tested. I've heard even healthcare providers say that supplements are not FDA tested, and there's lots of fear around them. Which in the U.S., to be fair, like yeah, like there's some reason to be very cautious about it. But something else to consider is like no, the supplements are not regulated by FDA. They're regulated by the USDA. They're regulated by the USDA. And so there is regulatory bodies, but the challenge with supplementation is there is a lack of third-party testing often. And you have to be cautious about which brands and what kind of testing that they're doing to make sure that you're getting a pure, high-quality product because, there are products on the market that may not have what they say they have in them or could have other stuff that could be harmful. And so that's why we want to use third-party tested and manufacturing facilities that are NSF certified or GMP certified that have good practices to protect against that sort of thing. So third-party test is essentially someone that comes in that's not the company itself, but that comes in and tests for purity and potency and that it has what it says it does.
Yeah, everybody wants to see what's actually in there. So that's why we like to recommend that. Is there any reasons why someone shouldn't take magnesium? First thing I can think of is if someone has any kind of kidney disease, magnesium supplementation is not recommended.
Yeah.
So in IBD, it's always recommended that you get labs yearly. Looking at your kidneys is one of those pictures that they like to take a look at. So it's always good to see what those levels are at, which is why talking to your healthcare provider about supplementation is a big gold star to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with anything, I think dietitians play a big role in helping you understand what's actually going on. There's a lot of times I feel like I see this the most with biotin that, people have hair loss or they have concerns or they feel malnourished. And so they'll just go and take biotin. But when you think about hair loss, there's so many different connecting points that we want to uncover. Like low iron and low zinc are actually more common, or, low intake malnutrition, not getting enough in general. So those are really like those common places that we might look first, especially in like an IBD patient, as to why they're seeing hair loss or maybe even medication related. And so, that's just one example. But if we look at that with magnesium too, like what if it's not magnesium? What if we need to have a larger conversation about what's actually going on? So I think that's the other caution that I would have around it, is just making sure that you're addressing the concerns and bringing them up to your team so that you can really dig deeper to find out what's actually going on. Yeah, so good conversation here, and I hope this was helpful, and we're going to dive into some more products soon, so keep watching. Have a great day.